You are tuned into Black Hollywood Live's Feud Aftershow. We are talking the premiere episode of Feud, Bette and Joan, Season 1, Episode 1, so stay tuned.
Daddy. His address is heaven.
So messy.
Daddy.
So right. All right.
Welcome everybody to VHL's Feud After Show. We are so excited to talk about the show. We have been waiting.
Right.
And finally it is here. I'm your host, Alana Jordan. You can find me on Twitter at Alana Jordan and on Instagram at That Alana Jordan Girl. And today I'm joined by an amazing panel of awesome ladies. We will not be fighting. It's nothing but love here.
Yes, absolutely not.
So, Kia Richardson, where can other people find you?
Hey guys, I am Nakia Monet, Kia Richardson, and you can find me on all social media at Kiki Boom Boom. Don't judge it.
Oh,
I love it.
Thank you.
Okay.
And also Lisa Lee is hanging out here.
Yeah, and you guys can find me everywhere at Lisa Mason Lee.
And hello, everyone. My name is Raquel Harris, and you can find me on all social media at Raquel Harris TV.
Awesome. So, before we even dive into this
claws
episode,
out.
Yes.
initial reactions. What are you guys feeling?
Oh my gosh, in love, so in love. Like I told all of you guys before we got here, I am so in love with Bette Davis and Joan Crawford's story. So I'm super stoked, Mom. I know that you're watching because this is like my mom is in love. I literally was like, oh my God, I have to jump on this panel. Like I have to. And so my fellow Aries, shout out to you guys. Because Joan Crawford and Bette Davis were two Aries, and one's a March Aries, one is an April Aries. So the differences do show.
Interesting.
I was very excited about this. I am a fangirl. I watch Turner Classic Movies.
Absolutely.
Retweet. That is
Yeah.
my thing, and I was really excited because Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is one of my favorite movies. Funny story, my great-grandmother used to call me Baby Jane growing up, and I had no idea who that was or what that was, so she's like, I need you to watch this movie. And when I watched it, I instantly fell in love, and I fell in love with Jane and talking horrible to her sister, but y'all Blanche, y'all Blanche.
And so right.
I've been waiting to say that.
Iconic.
But y'all Blanche, y'all. So I was excited about this.
Classic.
That's funny because my mom was much into Whatever Happened to Baby Jane too, just like you guys. So that's interesting. Like we have that connection.
Yeah,
with our moms.
absolutely.
What up, Mom?
Hey, hi, mom. Love you.
And my aunt.
Right.
I know you're
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
This is for you.
The cat fights. It's
Yeah, and it's awesome.
amazing.
It's awesome too that our generation is so in tune with them.
Yeah.
So I was really looking forward to meeting all of you guys and seeing like what you guys had in store to talk about too. So I think that's awesome.
Happy to know I'm not the only one watching TCM. Turner Classic
Oh,
Movies.
absolutely not.
My friends
absolutely
make
not.
fun of me because that's all I watch, and I love old movies.
Yeah,
so I'm
of
happy
course.
we all have like something in common.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like there's a lot of Sunset Boulevard vibe to this
Yes.
show.
Yeah,
And I'm all
absolutely.
about
I'm
that.
into that. And I love, too, that this whole show is basically based off of this amazing movie that we
Yeah.
all love. Whatever
Yeah.
Happened to Bette Jane. Betty Jane.
It's okay. Right.
It's like Bette Davis should get out of here.
Get out of here.
Right.
But y'all Blanche.
Yeah.
I was gonna do that on my voicemail.
So Ryan Murphy, I think, just knocked it out of the park
Yes.
with this one. I think our only question is, how many Emmys do you think that this is going to get?
Oh my gosh! I mean, it's already been picked up for another season, so I mean that goes to show the credibility
Ryan
that
Murphy
he has.
is so amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, from OJ to Glee to Nip Tuck to
American Horror Story.
American Horror Story.
Yeah.
And I just want to say shout out to him for doing this because I think a lot of people in this day and age don't really know who these iconic people are. And they don't
Yeah.
take the time to study as we would watch TCM. So I'm so
Right.
happy that he decided to go with them first. From like
Yes.
the 1960s, and this is when the movie was filmed. So I'm excited that Ryan
And this
Murphy.
is
Thank
the
you, Ryan Murphy.
iconic Feud.
Yes,
Perfect one to kick it off.
It was, and like I literally when I saw the preview for it, I was like, oh my gosh, I have got to be on that panel. This is ridiculous.
Thank
And-
you, Ryan.
Yes, thank you. And I agree. This is the most iconic feud that's been in Hollywood history. So it has to be talked about. So finally we are seeing it, and I'm so excited.
And just right out the gate, it opens up with this awesome cartoon intro. Perfect music, perfect. We see basically the plot line
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Baby Jane. And then we also,
Very
acts it out.
60s.
Very 60s.
Yeah.
Very like
Yeah.
Bond-esque.
Yes, I love that.
A little Hitchcocky, too.
Yes,
Yeah,
very,
very
Alfred
Hitchcocky.
Hitchcock.
Yeah, very. And it's crazy because a lot of people think that the feud started with whatever happened to Baby Jane,
Yes.
but it didn't. They've had decades of issues.
30 years
Francesca
prior.
Yeah.
Tote, basically.
Over
Yeah.
a boy.
A boy.
I know.
Always
Because,
about a boy.
women,
Francesca.
right? How we are portrayed in film is so bad. I know.
But this is the thing that I love about Ryan Murphy too, is because he is willing to highlight. He's kind of the very front runner to highlight ageism and
Yes.
sexism in Hollywood.
yes,
And
yes.
because this is so perfectly cast too, Jessica Lange and Susan Sarandon.
man.
I was like, be still my heart. I love that we even see like the last image is the crying of the hearts, because I was like, that is
Yes.
just the audience watching this.
Yeah.
That's not even the characters. That's me right now.
Right.
That is me.
Okay. And we even talked about that when we were watching in the trailer, that I felt like Susan Sarandon could have easily swapped.
And play Joan.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because to me, her feature is just, but she definitely, gives the Betty,
She projects Betty.
Yes, absolutely. But her features are so Joan that I was like, oh, okay, Susan Sarandon Joan. But then when I was like, okay, that's fine. We
As
can do
soon
that.
as we saw Jessica Lange with the eyebrows,
Those
I was like,
eyebrows.
Yes,
She's
because
it.
iconic. And that was the era of that time where the eyebrows were very,
yeah.
very short and very on point, like just,
Right.
yeah. So.
And your eyebrows kind of defined your look.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We had, the whole makeup studio that
Yes.
that they kind of defined all of the different starlets. So it's really cool to get to see this brought to life. And I was kind of wondering how they were going to, because Ryan Murphy does really, really structured things.
Yeah.
How they were going to do that with this particular show. And he even breaks it down into a 3-act structure with just titles
Yes.
beforehand
Yeah.
with the interview. So I love that we get, the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, 1978, Olivia de
Havilland.
Yeah, shout out to Captain Zeta Jones. Who I had no idea.
Yeah,
I did not even know that was her. I had to watch it twice.
She's so good.
Amazing.
She's so
Yeah.
good. So they bring her in to talk about Joan first and kind of give us the backstory, which perfect way to frame this narrative.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm just so in awe. This was just so awesome. Like, I'm still on a high right now from Feud.
Right.
And I love how like Ryan Murphy, he set it up, and I love how he gives you the backstory to the actual feud and what happened and how it started, because Joan is complaining about Betty.
Right.
And she's giving you the backstory, like, well, actually, no, this has been going on for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
And they've been having this feud.
Yeah.
And now they're going to work on this movie, and Joan thinks that, let me bring in Betty, to kind of help her, but she wanted to be petty a little bit.
She wanted the spotlight, but I like the intro quote when I forget who had said it. It was the person
It was
that
Catherine Zeta as Olivia de Havilland.
Yes.
awesome, and she had said feuds are never about hate; it's always about pain.
Yes.
And I loved that quote because I'm like, and that really that's where Joan kind of stems from. It's like
Yeah.
she's upset because she's kind of washed out now, and Betty, even though she's 4 years younger, she kind of takes on those roles, but she was doing Broadway,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
she's still
Yeah.
kind of getting work, and then she kind of highlights that later on in the show, and she's like, well, yeah, you haven't been working for 3 years.
Yeah.
So, and it's just, I know, just a burn.
Nice.
Yes. And also, back in those days, Betty Davis was looked at, she wasn't traditionally beautiful.
Right.
And whereas Joan Crawford was rumored to sleep her way
To the
around
top.
to the top. So
Right.
I think that gave Betty a chance to actually work on her craft. And
Yeah.
that's why she was known to be one of the best actresses.
I love
Yeah.
that they started this
Yeah.
too without even their feud. They started with Marilyn Monroe.
Oh my gosh.
I know. But
So
see, and
it's
who's also
just-
iconic for sleeping her way
Yeah.
to the top.
But you see the
Right.
pre-Betty Petty.
Yeah.
But I love how she said it. She was like, I have tits too, but that doesn't mean that I have to show them
Right.
off. And I'm like, well, I don't know. You showed something else off, and that's
But
what got
it's
you.
like Joan looking at her younger self, because
Yeah.
Joan was known to sleep her way to the top, and then now in her 50s, she feels kind of washed up.
Absolutely.
And now the roles are going to the women like the Marilyn Monroes, and she's now sitting back like, wow. And I feel like it's kind of like today, because you look at the women today, like the Kim Kardashians, and some
Yeah.
people may feel like, well, she doesn't have enough talent, or she didn't work as hard as I did. And I think some women may feel some type of way about that.
Absolutely.
I think that the best quote is when they're talking, when she's giving her interview, and she's flat out told by the reporter, there's only room for one goddess at a time. Men built this pedestal. Don't blame me. Men built this pedestal. And then she just comes back with but women are the ones
Was to
that
jump.
chip away at it until there's nothing left. And you're like, oh, that is Hollywood in a show.
Right. I love, because Joan Crawford always has something like a backlash. She always has a clap back, which is so awesome about her. And I know, because I know we discussed like who our favorites were. And I'm like, not unfortunately, but Joan, I just love Joan because she is the queen. Like, I feel like she's the master class of petty. So like seeing her, I just love seeing her.
Love that, though.
Yeah. She's the most entertaining. And I mean, and unfortunately, we do see her career kind of flop and start to deter or go downhill. But I don't know. I've always enjoyed Joan, so I mean, I was very excited.
No more wire hangers.
I know, yeah, right. I mean, and that's how we see so many biopics and biographies that are portrayed in film about her. So I mean, she is.
And
she's
she
Joan.
really does. She gets things done. It's the quintessential.
She's a boss.
Yeah,
it's
she
like
is
my
a
favorite
boss.
Tina Fey, Amy Poehler quote.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I am a bitch. Bitches get things done.
That's right.
I'm a
like,
nasty
Joan is
woman.
The OG
Because in
bitch.
Hollywood,
Yeah.
you see the ageism.
Yeah, and they
Correct.
flat out they say in this one there are no roles for you.
Yes.
If you want to do it yourself.
And
And
she's
whereas
like-
most actresses would be like, well, harumph. She's
Exactly.
like, bring me
Yeah.
all the books with
I
women on the cover.
want it, and I want this
Yeah.
amount of money. If it was Kirk Douglas, you wouldn't be doing that to him.
Yeah.
I'm a boss, and I love that they showed that Bette Davis and Joan Crawford were about it, and they were icons and they were legends, and they were not
Absolutely.
going to take this laying down.
I
Yeah.
want that scene just in real life more. I'm like, writers, you go to the library, you say, give me all the books with women on the cover,
Yeah.
and I'm
We're
gonna
gonna
start
find that
seeing
movie.
some more movies because I want to see it.
Right.
So I love that she, basically says there are 3 categories that women fall into as ingenue, mother, and gorgons. And then she's like,
Right.
gorgons. Yeah. And it's, again, kind of, it's like, okay, let's hit the nail on the head a little bit more. Tell us how you feel. Because,
right.
Well, not only ageism was a big problem back then, but there weren't very many roles for women for a lot of actors because Hollywood was so small and condensed.
Yes.
Now in our day and age, we have social media stars, we have reality stars, and it's just so spread out, you can't tell who's who. So that's why the feud also was just so intense.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like all the women were beefing with everyone because we see the Marilyn beef with Joan. So I feel like you said, it was so condensed and there weren't as many actresses out there, so that everyone was fighting for the same role, pretty much. So I feel like at some point you kind of had to have a beef with everybody.
Yep.
yeah.
This is
Well,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I love how I love Joan Crawford. I'm a big Bette Davis fan, but I love Joan Crawford. But it shows like her insecurities a little bit. She's so
Yeah.
insecure about her
All the
looks,
way.
And I was
her
sad.
age, and I felt bad. Like every day she was doing a beauty treatment.
Yeah.
You guys peep, she had witch hazel, and I read that she really did this in real life and would put witch hazel on her face. She was doing all these creams for her neck and the lemons and
Where was Botox back then?
Right. I was just about to
she
say
would have got
that.
the Botox, and it's sad because when you see her looking at Marilyn Monroe, and she's just like, and these women were just in their 50s, and now you look at women today in their 50s and 60s, and the Meryl Streeps and the Viola Davis, and they're taking over the game, and you see poor Joan Crawford trying to get the next beauty
Struggling.
treatment,
Yeah.
struggling. And I look at Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and she looks so beautiful in that movie.
I feel like everyone back then looked way more beautiful than they are.
Classic.
Not than they do today, but it was like a very classic, not as caked up look. It was very simple.
Pre-contour.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Pre-baking.
Right, absolutely. And so I enjoy, like you said, watching TCM and watching those old films.
The lighting.
Because,
All
yeah,
about that lighting.
Right,
It still is about the lighting.
It is.
Exactly.
I said, you know what, Joan may be onto something about that
Isn't
lighting.
that lighting
Yeah.
a little harsh?
Right.
Such a good moment.
Even just now it's the side, whatever side you're on.
Your angle.
yeah,
Yeah.
your angle. Find your
No
light.
comment.
Work your angles.
Right, no comment. Right.
I can
But-
see
oh my
Joan
gosh.
in today's day and age. I
Oh,
can see her
100%.
obsessed with her look and
You gotta get the ring
Both
light.
sides.
Yeah. All about
Doing
it. All about it.
selfies.
Oh, Joni.
Oh,
And that's why
Joni.
this is such a good show. It just echoes so much what we're still seeing. Where this is in years and years and years ago, and they're bringing this. We see Bob bringing this movie that Jonas pitched to him with Betty to all of these executives. And they're just like sexist remark after sexist remark until
Yeah.
they blatantly just like, would you bang either of them? If the answer
Right.
is no, they can't be in the movie.
like
Right.
really.
And you're
Right.
like, well, how often does that happen now? Where you're like, hey, see how this was wrong then?
Exactly.
Right. And then we get to see Jack Warner.
Yeah.
Which I thought was so interesting too, because I did not know, and you had filled me in on the fact that he was known for being an asshole.
Yes.
And then like
But-
go ahead.
I mean, I didn't, but until I saw this show, I didn't know that Betty had sued him to get out of her
Actually
contract.
isn't true. So this is the one thing, and this at first I was like, what? But
Yeah.
it's like my trivia is just
Right.
burning right now.
Right.
But I think that this was intentional, that Jack said that she sued him. In actuality, this was during the contract player days, which a lot of people don't know. Like now, actors can sign contracts with whoever. They're free agents. They can do movies on any lot. Other lots rent from each other. It's all like a big communal thing.
Right.
Back in the day, they basically traded actors like baseball cards.
Yeah.
Right. It was like each studio owned an actor.
Right.
They had their own production bungalow. They didn't have trailers. They had like their own little apartment on the lot. They lived there. They worked there. They were just they basically were whatever to the studio. I mean, they
Right.
could even be like, "Hey, go do secretary work. Go do whatever in between movies."
Right.
Yes.
A slave to him.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then Bette Davis was the first one who went overseas to England. She did a movie that she said, this doesn't break my contract because it's overseas. They sued her
Wow.
and won. But then she came back with a ton of respect because the movie, she still did it. And she was like, well, this is...
Right. I got to do what I got to do.
So that is the one true thing, is that it did kind of put like the crack in the levee that then like years later broke down like the whole contract player system, which which was more difficult for the studio heads because now actors were kind of able to call the shots because the public aren't saying, hey, show me the next Jack Warner picture. They're showing Bette Davis. Let me see her face.
Right. Which
Those
was
Bette
crazy.
Davis eyes.
Yeah, and it was crazy that like when Bob had went to Jack Warner and he was like, so I'm your last resort, and to think that Warner Brothers would ever be the last resort of anything.
Right.
So it
Look
really,
at him now.
Right. It puts it into perspective of how young Hollywood was at that certain time. So I mean, that was definitely like a history lesson for me too.
I think that was another thing that I felt like it was intentional because I was like, well, why wouldn't Bob say, well, actually.
Right.
But then I was thinking, okay, that could also be an intentional thing where it's like, okay, I want to call you out, but I also kind of have to ingratiate myself to you a
And I need
little
your
bit.
help.
Which he did though.
I need your money.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then he took his shots at him though. He was like,
He
look,
did.
no one's really working with you either. But because Jack was like, look, Bob, your last films have been terrible.
Right.
And then Bob's like, you're not gonna have the last shot at me. I'm gonna give you a little tea about yourself. No one's been working with you either. So honestly, this film is gonna make you too. So I mean, I feel like you need to go ahead and jump on board. And I feel like it was a great way to highlight Joan and Betty, because I'm sure in Hollywood everyone knew that they beefed.
Yeah.
So to have them share a scene together, iconic.
I find it interesting because they have this feud and they're both iconic, but for me, and I love Joan Crawford, but you just see how she's just trying to get Bette Davis approval. And when Bette Davis was on Warner Brothers, Joan Crawford came to Warner Brothers, and they had the dressing rooms next to each other, and she was sending Betty gifts, and Betty was like, I'm good, and would send them back. Betty was not here for Joan Crawford.
She invited her to dinner, and then she was like, I'll come over with my boyfriend, and she was like, if I wanted your effing beau there, then I would have invited him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she's just trying to get her, even with whatever happened to Baby Jane, who gets nominated for an Oscar? Bette Davis. But Joan Crawford upstages her at the Oscars, and she wasn't even nominated.
Right.
So it's like,
it's just going back and forth. Yeah.
She just wanted her approval, even when you see them on set. And I think for Joan, because Joan gets the book, she pitches this movie.
Yeah.
This is my idea. I put
Producer
Betty on,
Joan.
and then Betty comes up stages with her amazing costume and the crazy makeup.
Well,
and you see her insecure. You see Joan's insecurities, and
Even before we get to that point,
Yeah.
we see that the first kind of, crack in the levee, again, to use the expression, is, which I love the juxtaposition of the two guys fighting over these women, and then the two women on screen. Yes. And just kind of seeing how they created this feud of them. And then we see them, they see, the two of them together, it's an event. And that's when she sees the oversight.
on the contract.
The
Right.
contract.
And we're just like,
And she's
1,500.
steaming mad.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
at that point,
Well, no, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a ton of money back then, but and it's so funny because I do feel like that was kind of very insulting to Joan because Joan was the one that pitched it to Bob. So
Agreed.
So I feel like, I mean, that was producer Joan. That
And
was
Jessica
her thing.
Lange doesn't get an Emmy just for that face.
She's amazing.
Though.
Her
Looking
face.
at the contract and
She's
then
like-
dropping, I was like,
She gets $600 more
No.
a day.
Yeah, and I love
And
the
the music.
cinematography in here too, like the
Right.
zoom-ins and the
The
camera
zooms.
angles. I
Very
was like, this
60s.
is amazing.
the music,
Yeah.
I love too that
the
you bring
music's
that up
amazing.
because it's very reminiscent. They use like the horror cues
Yes.
of the horror
Psycho.
movie.
The horror
Yeah, of the
very
1940s
psycho.
feel. Like
Yeah.
it really captures that essence
But
of
I
that time.
think Betty got more money because she was Betty Davis and she was nominated for the
Theatrical
Oscars and
fame.
she won the Oscars all about Eve and Jezebel. So I don't think it was an oversight. I think because she was Betty Davis.
So are you saying Betty's a better actress?
Well, that is my girl. No.
But see, but I like because
Maybe we will feud. I don't know.
Right.
Betty versus Joan.
But and then Joan had said that she had always wanted her respect in it. I mean,
Yeah.
and she did get it because in the trailer, Betty was like, you know, when you're good, you're good, and I have to give that to you. And I liked that moment because you can't take that away from Joan. Like I mentioned before, I mean, Joan's had several different stories told about her. So I mean, I do feel like that was a very touching moment for Betty and for Joan because what Joan wanted was your respect and you gave it to her.
But it was funny. though.
Yeah, but
Yes.
then 2 minutes after that, her insecurities played because here's Betty giving her a little bit of advice on what to wear and what to look, and she's like, "Don't tell me how to play my character."
Now,
Yeah.
this is actually after, because we have it broken up into like the 3 acts. So
Right.
this is actually in the second act. So we get this one is actually a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
We get we have the I want 1500 as the zinger that
Yes.
we lead Joan on, and then Joan Blondell, played by Kathy Bates, steps in.
Yeah,
Start
Kathy.
selling
She always
Betty's
pops in
side.
randomly in shows.
She's
It's so
looking good.
funny.
Especially
No,
Ryan
good.
Murphy. Like,
Brian
Yeah,
Murphy's
yes,
amazing.
he's like,
Yeah.
more Kathy.
Right.
I would say for me, he took me to the 70s when he interviewed the ladies and took me back to the 50s and took me to the 60s, and that's what I love
Right.
about Ryan Murphy.
Right.
He
it
loves
was
time
later.
errors.
The interviews were later.
Yeah, they were
And he
they were
did
like in the
such a good job
70s,
at
so
it.
he
Yeah.
took me there. I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful, Ryan Murphy. Thank you.
I
And
know.
then even having the flashback shots of the movie and having
The black and white.
Susan
He loves
Sarandon and Jessica
flashbacks.
Lange recreating these scenes just perfectly to a T.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. So
I wonder how we'll jump back and forth in time.
Yeah.
You know, because since the feud started 30 years almost prior to whatever happened to Baby Jane, I'm just kind of wondering how far we're going to go back into things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Or if it's
I
just going to
feel
go
like
forward.
probably we'll have some sort of references because she's complaining about Francesco
From like 1939.
yeah.
Like,
and like still going on, she is responsible for one of my failed marriages. It's like, woman, take
Yeah.
responsibility for
Yeah.
yourself. Nobody
like,
made you
is it
marry
really
that
her
man.
fault?
You married him out of spite, like.
Yeah.
From 30
Everything
years
was
ago.
petty. Just the era of petty.
And then just get burned by their own petty. But
I know. It's so sad. And that's why I feel so bad for
And that's
Joan.
why I love it. No.
there's no.
I'm like, no.
No.
I know. I love. It's like you love and hate Joan because
Yes.
she is that character that she's raw. She's to the point and she doesn't hold back and she is who she is and she lets it be known. So I guess that's what I love about her. But she's definitely a March Aries to the T. All that emotional, like crazy, controlling. Sorry,
Yeah,
March Aries.
lonely.
Now
Yeah.
we do get a little bit though of Betty's backstory
Yes.
just through Kathy Bates' character,
Right.
which is not as extensive as Joan's. Like this part they kind of just touched on,
Yeah.
but we see her failed marriage. How we get the divorce. She has a daughter, but it's
Right.
just kind of glazed over.
Yeah.
She wasn't really. That wasn't the real life role. For
Yeah,
her.
and how she chose her profession over her marriage.
Yes.
This is why this woman, I love you, Betty Davis, was dedicated to her craft.
Yeah.
And she
Absolutely.
cared more about her craft than her marriage.
Yeah.
And that's what I took from it. Her husband was a horrible actor, and I think for her, she's like, I can't go out this way. Let's get that to
Right. I don't know
is
about
so-
you, but
Yeah,
right.
which is cool too, seeing Joan just bitch about Betty,
I
to
know.
her man, and then it's basically like, okay, so you two are more obsessed with each other than you are whatever
Yeah.
dude you're
Yeah,
with. Like,
exactly.
Well, Joan's obsessed with Betty, really.
Yeah.
I feel like it's more so that way. Like Betty's like, look, I'll be petty along with you because you're being petty towards me, but I'm really not worried about you because on top of that, she was, in Broadway, she was still getting
Yeah.
some sort of work. So whereas
Yes.
Joan was not.
Yeah.
So Betty knew like, okay, I have a leg up on you, but you do have the name, which. Again, which is why we had a more intricate story about her because she's Joan Crawford.
She's Joan Crawford.
Yeah.
She's Mommy Dearest.
And they
Yeah.
needed a hit, so they came together.
Exactly.
Name.
And what better way to do it it though. I mean,
Yeah.
it would be like a modern day Feud. Would be if Remy Ma and Nicki Minaj came onto a track together, everybody would be like, what?
Or Mariah Carey and J Lo.
Oh man! Oh my God! I don't know her, and it'll be
one of
titled
those.
"I don't know her." Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I will say for
love
Joan
it.
Crawford, I love that she has a refrigerator in her bathroom
Filled with
Yeah.
vodka.
with vodka.
Goals?
My dreams.
ice.
Goals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe some whiskey. Thank you,
I
Joan
just want
Crawford.
to be Joan. Like
No, really. I mean, they just live like this life of just lavish, of just everything's just about me, and I just don't care about anyone
Glamorous.
else. Yeah, and I'm here for it. It's
Yup.
very Aries.
I love it. Now, I gotta ask though, do you think that she meant it when she said that she didn't want friendship, she just wanted respect?
No.
No.
I mean, I think she wanted Betty's approval, and I
Yeah.
think she wanted her respect. But I think, because if you look at Joan Crawford, she was lonely. Her daughter was given up to write Mommy Dearest, and her marriages weren't going that great. She had her best friend, which was
Was
her
the
her
maid,
maid, Mamacita,
Mamacita.
and her fans would come and hang out with her.
And paint and do
And
work in the
pain.
house.
So
Yeah.
Joan Crawford was very lonely, and I think she wanted a friend, even though they were rivals.
Yeah.
And they had a feud. I think deep down she came. It's like she followed the woman to Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
And I think she wanted her as a friend, low key. That's what I think.
I feel like she wanted to feel like she was needed.
Yeah.
Because I mean, everyone had she drove everyone out of her life. So I mean, what better person you're really friends with your enemies in some sort of way because you share some type of connection or you share a relationship. So I think, at the end of the day, I do think Joan was just extremely, extremely lonely, and she was like, okay, who can I kind of latch on to, and whose career is kind of ending like mine? Bette Davis. So
Yeah. Well,
but she's smart though.
Two old rods.
She's very smart because I mean
With
her
our
picture.
powers combined.
Yeah, I mean, in reality, I mean,
Yeah.
like, what better way to get a hard-hitting film is to put the two people who are beefing the most during this time on a film together. So I mean, Joan, she's not stupid.
And
She
then
was
we
smart.
finally see that our final third, rounding it out, the first day of principal photography. And you're just like, it's about to go down. Like,
Yeah.
That's the popcorn. I'm going to see some
That
punches
poor
get thrown.
director. I mean, from the
I
both of them
know,
complaining on
Bob.
set, he's like the dad. Poor Bob. He's the father who has to like hold his two daughters away from each other because this one's upset because of lighting, this one's upset because of the dressing room. There's Pepsi on the set. She's giving out presents. I felt so bad for the director because I know he had to go through a lot.
Yeah.
And then Betty even hinted to a past relationship that he may have had with Joan Crawford.
Right.
Just being so
Not
petty.
even hitting, like flat out. I was
He's
like,
like-
did you bang Joan?
Are you sleeping with her?
Oh my God.
And then he has
like,
to pull them
sugarcoat it,
aside
okay.
and explain, I have to treat her in a certain type of way. And I'm like, this guy, I mean, he needed his own award to
Mr.
deal with these
Aldrich
two.
taking out a mortgage to pay for this
For
movie.
this
And he's
movie.
like,
But see, I
"Please,
love
please
that
be good."
though. I mean, as an artist, I mean, if
Yeah.
you want your film to be out there, you got to do what you got to do. And I mean, obviously, we're still talking about it today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it makes
And
sense.
famously, they said they never really fought on set, but it's
Right.
because they went through Bob. It seems
Poor Bob.
like.
Right. Which they did though fight literally on screen. I don't know if we touch on that later on in the scenes, but Joan Crawford had actually put rocks because she was the one that was paralyzed. She put rocks in her outfit so that when Betty had to drag her, she was
be
10 times heavier.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like it's so weird because I guess I feel like as a director, whoever's like managing the stage, no one's like, hey, let's not do this because
Right.
we're gonna be here longer. I'm gonna have to take more takes.
But it's all passive aggressive.
It is.
Yeah.
It's not like,
Like they
Yeah.
would never like go at each
Yes.
other on set. Like they
Yeah.
would never actively fight on set, but it's because they knew how to play the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They sarcastically give these interviews. Oh no, she's so great. I love her.
Right.
She's amazing. Joan Crawford knew Bette Davis had the back problem, so she put the rocks in. So it's very passive aggressive. And
Calling her
then
Lucille.
Lucille.
Right,
She would never
yes.
call her Joan. She would call her her given
Lucille.
name.
What do you want, Lucille?
So petty.
And they talk about that
3 years,
intro.
Lucille. You haven't worked in
3 years. Right. Let me remind you.
Oh.
But I love that she's like, look, I don't like you and you don't like me, but when you're good, you're good.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, you have to give props to people, one who did come before you, and I'm pretty sure like most artists kind of do highlight or they touch on different things that an artist previous to them has done. So I mean, all in all, like I said, I'm Team Joan. I'm sorry. I love
we've
Joan.
got
that
teams
backhanded
now. Let
compliment.
the feud games begin.
I'm gonna be alone, everybody, as we watch the entire season. I'm gonna be
I
like,
go back and forth between,
Yeah.
like,
I
I'm
do
just
too.
like, depending on the scene, I'm like, better burn.
right.
I'm Team Betty.
I'm Team Betty because when I learned more about Joan Crawford, like Joan Crawford back in the day would take roles that Bette Davis didn't want. And it just shows her insecurities. But I like Joan Crawford. I do.
But I gotta say, Betty, though, after immediately giving a compliment right in with the backhand and lose the shoulder pads and wipe off the lipstick.
Yeah.
And then
I'm like, girl, you built poor Joan up. And Joan's like, oh, we're having a moment. And she's like, by the way, lose those shoulder pads. Like, Joan just got
Which
stabbed.
was her look. That was her signature look.
Yeah.
She's like,
So
you're
she
not going to
just
tell
cut her
me.
down.
You're not going to tell me how. She's like, we didn't even step on stage. I didn't even act yet. So you're not going to tell me how to be my character. You are Jane. Let me be Blanche.
Yeah.
Blanche.
I love
so
though that
funny.
we see, her first take on screen where we just see the mark, they're pointing out the X, and you get the perspective of this is what the actor's looking at. They're looking at a taped
And
X on the wall.
Yeah, they have to do that sometimes,
Yeah.
Well, to make sure
90%.
they're right, the eye.
Yeah,
on
the
camera.
eye line.
I love
So instead of watching anything to react to,
Right.
then we see Jessica Lange just kill it. And I feel like that just highlighted her performance
know.
even
Awesome.
more. Was it's like, by the way, Jessica Lange is also looking at this
Right.
square, just so
Right,
you know.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing
Right.
actress.
Seeing this perfect
Yeah.
replica of what you
Yeah.
saw on screen, she's doing that.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
what up, Emmy board?
No,
Yeah.
literally.
And then in that scene, though, I felt so bad for Joan, too, because you can see, like, okay, it has been 3 years. And she's just sitting there thinking, like, oh my gosh, I need to kill
Right.
this because
Yeah.
Betty is going to overshadow me. And then when Bob is like, Joan, are you here? And then she
Right.
just taps in.
Like, get out of your head, Joan. Stop being so insecure.
Yeah.
You're a legend. Be the legend that we know.
Absolutely, and I love seeing actresses and actors go transform like that. It's a beautiful thing, especially when it's so seamless. I like seeing her just go, and I wonder because I mean she's kind of portraying two different people because Jessica Lange is like, okay, I need to be Joan right now, and as an actress, she's still being an actress herself.
Right.
So she's like, okay, tapping into actress, tapping into Joan, and I'm like, wow, this is it's such a fun show to watch. I'm so excited.
good.
It was a little heartbreaking to see the both of them come in to watch after the first day of shooting. They're both sitting on opposite sides and they're watching themselves. And the first thing Joan says is she's like, is that lighting a little harsh?
Yeah.
And he's like, don't worry, Joan, we're gonna fix it. Betty comes in and she and this is what I love because even though they both felt the same way, Joan voiced how she felt.
Yeah.
Her emotions. Betty felt the same way, but she didn't voice it.
Yeah.
So you hear Joan, she's upset, she gets up and leaves. Betty sits there silent. Her eyes are watering because they see themselves
They both are
as these
embarrassed.
all old women to Hollywood at that time.
Yeah.
Playing these roles. And I think to them, they're like, what's happening?
But
What
it's
I
so
love
internal.
is so how
Yeah.
perfectly that highlights how they need each other. Is it's
Yes.
like
Yeah.
she is your voice.
You guys
and
need
she
each other.
is your face. Like the two of
Yeah.
you combined, you can be this
Yeah.
awesome entity, which we see, but then just a little bit more of a dig.
Yeah.
Betty can't just say it.
Betty.
She goes to look at her look, has a whole row of wigs,
Oh.
and which one does she pick?
Jones.
Cast off from an old MGM nothing.
That hasn't been
Yeah.
touched since
That
Joan
hasn't been-
touched it.
Right.
That's
That
all.
stands
she
out how-
picked it, you know.
Yeah, but that
That-
stands to a T of who Joan was. She had an iconic look, so that's why
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna keep giving points
keep doing
to
it.
Joan. But yeah, I mean you want to be Joan. In a sense, I feel like in the back of her mind and her subconscious, there is a little jealousy from Betty because
Yeah.
it's like Joan is that bitch.
But I think Betty's playing off of because remember, Joan was following Bette Davis.
Yeah.
So every role Betty didn't want, Joan was like, well, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So I think for Betty to be petty Betty, at that moment, she's like,
Yeah.
I want that wig. Like, and I think she knows how to poke at Joan. She
yeah.
knows how to play at her insecurities.
Correct.
I think she's like, I'm gonna get her. And literally, she walks on set, and Joan, her heart breaks when she sees her because she upstages her once again, and all she did was walk on set.
And be her though.
Oh, in the most amazing way where she's like, okay, we've already pointed out that you could have done better. You could have made more money in your last movie if you were willing to tone down the glamour a little bit. I'm going to walk in here looking like a psychopath baby doll in one of your old wigs.
Exactly. And
I'm
I'm
going to
gonna
make you look dumb.
be nominated for that Oscar, which she was.
Yeah.
And she risked it. She risked it, and she did such an amazing job. And I think she knew that was gonna get at Joan, and
Yeah.
it did. To see your rival coming out with your wig, like, no.
It's cool
No.
too seeing how, back in the day, a lot of times they did their own makeup
Yes.
and how that helped define the character. and the actors themselves would decide how they wanted to look.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Which, nowadays
That
you're like,
doesn't happen.
huh.
Yeah.
There's a whole team that goes behind it. Like the directors,
Right.
they tell you what they want you to look like. But
Yeah.
back then, these ladies
So you
Bed
see
control.
how personal it
Yeah.
is, too.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that actors now do bring their own essence to their characters. I mean, I feel like for instance, like Heath Ledger, he's was a phenomenal actor, and I mean, the different things that he did to prepare for the Joker character was amazing. Locking himself in a hotel room to create that dark essence for the Joker. So I mean, I think actors still do that. We just probably don't highlight it as much, but which is why I feel so bad about Joan and why she walked out when Betty had did that, because at the end of the day, I feel like Joan, she's earned that spot, but at the same time, she just keeps getting upstaged. And I don't know. I feel so bad for Joan.
And I think what Betty was letting her know, just like back in the day, Betty had to perfect her craft because traditionally she wasn't as beautiful as a Joan Crawford.
Yeah.
Where Joan Crawford just had to walk in a room and she can get a role because of her looks alone.
Yeah.
And I think when Betty walked out to show her like, I'm gonna take this risk and look like a psychopath because I'm gonna kill this role. You can be cute and safe all you want, Miss Joan
Right.
Crawford, but I'm here. And it broke her heart. And at that moment, I did feel bad for Joan Crawford. I'm like, okay.
And I feel like it highlights how Hollywood turns women into these monsters.
Yes.
Because it is, I mean, even still today, if you see reporters on the news, people are changing their hair color. They're making sure there's no gray streaks. You want to be as young and as fulfilling to the audience as you can be. So I feel like, I mean, I don't know how Joan would have been if she was never an actress, but I'm sure she wouldn't be the person that she was, as an actress. So I mean,
became.
yeah, absolutely. And I feel like Hollywood turned her into that. So I mean, that's why I guess I feel for her just a little bit. As a woman, it's hard because you are over-sexualized, you are objectified, and who monopolizes the media? Men.
Yeah.
So I mean, you kind of you're trying to always be that next big thing, especially when, someone like Marilyn Monroe comes through too.
And what's interesting, the tabloids back in the old days, everyone just perceived this as everything's so innocent, the times were so sweet and fun, but now we're really going into the depths and seeing the history and what it was really like. And Hedda Hopper, who
I
was
love her.
leading this whole charade of the
Yeah.
tabloids.
And she
Hedda,
knew,
welcome
she knew
to
the
the house that feared
Yes.
girls. You're like,
And I hated how she threatened her, and she was like, "Look, are you gonna give me something about Betty, or do I have to talk about how you were walking out of the award show drunk?"
But that's like today.
No,
because
it
a lot
is.
of stars, I feel like, have that relationship with the media where they're like, I'll sell you something, but make sure you can put this story out about me.
Right.
Or I won't blackmail you because I seen you doing X, Y, and Z.
Right.
But I need this drop from you.
I need a good story.
So I loved seeing that, and the shade between these two, because you see a little bit of the mommy dearest like stab. She's like, your children don't even get visits from your children.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
fans are here. Well, your fans and Mamacita, girl. Like,
And
come on.
Mamacita.
But it's true. You see the media, and it's like she knew that they had this feud, and she wanted them to say it so bad on tape. And I love how at least they came together this one time and agreed, like, okay.
We can both make
what I
something
love-
golden.
Yeah. And what I love about this is that's when it's all women.
Yes.
There's no men there to stir garbage
'Cause
up.
that's
Right.
what they do.
Sorry, man.
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
I'm
But we
getting
love
ready to
you.
turn this into like
It's
Right.
all
Oh, what
your
a
fault.
man
We-
hate
This
club.
is why we
don't
hate each other.
men.
We
Right.
love you guys.
Don't like
men.
sexism in the Hollywood
Exactly.
system.
Yeah.
And it's like the men were turning the women against each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh,
'Cause
100%.
yeah, I mean, and women, unfortunately, we sink ourselves into it because we're like, oh, well, I guess we believe like, well, I can be better than that person, and everyone else is gonna love me. So it's unfortunate because I feel like we are, we're our own. What am I trying to say? We're our own
Downfall.
enemies. Our own
Yeah.
enemies. Yeah, and so I feel like women wake up, stop doing this, embrace one another.
They
Don't.
say it point blank when they come together. It's an event.
It
So
is.
don't
And-
let anybody stand in your way.
Yes, women
Be an
empowerment.
event.
It's Women's History Month. Ladies
Ah,
together.
and they would do that, right? I know. Look at that. So
Ladies
cute.
sticking together.
Exactly. There's no feud here.
No.
Right.
I'm just Team Betty.
There are 4 pedestals up here.
Right. Right.
And nobody's
all of
chipping
us.
at anything.
Right.
Okay.
Right. We may be on teams, but that's it.
It's okay, but we love them. I even though I'm Team Betty, I do have a love for Joan because I just love the old actresses, and I have a love for her a
Yeah.
little bit. I don't feel bad for her, but I have a little love for Miss
That's
Joan
valid.
Crawford.
That's
Yeah.
valid. I think I'm just. I try to like take the humane approach, and I just feel bad for anyone who's mentally going through that. Like she's really battling with herself. Like I just need to be relevant. I just need to be relevant. And you even see that. I mean, with today's artists, it's a constant fight to stay on top, to stay important, to stay on screen. So
to stay looking young.
And so taking extreme measures to be young. It's unfortunate. Like I mean, Beauty's important, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
it's sad that this exact same story with almost the exact same scenes, just with some names changed.
Yeah.
Today.
Could take place right now.
Yeah.
Today. That's why I love seeing the beauty. I love seeing all the treatments that she was doing in the lemons. And I'm like, poor thing. Women actually really still do this in Hollywood.
Yeah,
but now we have Botox.
Ageism, I think, has chilled out these days. You know, we're seeing Meryl Streep on screen and Jessica Lange kind of like, as an older woman playing this person stuck in this ageism thing, it's really interesting. It's like a play on itself. You know?
Is.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to see how they were on set, though. Like, I wonder if they still embodied their characters even while they were on break.
Oh,
like that would be interesting.
Method.
Like Susan Sarandon and Jessica Lange.
Yeah, like because I know like with Django, Leonardo DiCaprio, he stayed with his character and he told Jamie Foxx, "Don't talk to me while I'm on set," because he still wanted to embody that racist figure. So I wonder if Jessica Lange and Susan, just still could, if they still were like, okay, let me just keep this going throughout the break.
I don't know. That would be interesting.
Yeah,
I would love to see the behind the scenes.
I would too. I think they picked two really great actresses for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ryan Murphy just always does a good job, and I love how he places his resident actors. You see the Kathy Bates in there. I love how he does that. So I think he did a really good job with because when I was watching American Horror Story, I was upset that Jessica Lange wasn't coming back, but I said to myself, she is up to something, and it's Feud.
And now we know.
Yeah.
I'm not upset anymore.
Yeah,
And it's so good.
It's so good.
So good.
I'm so excited. I cannot wait to be back next week.
Yeah.
And see what else they have to dish out for us.
So excited.
In the meantime, where can we find more from you guys?
Well, you guys have just watched Feud, and my name is Raquel Harris. You can find me on all social media at Raquel Harris TV.
I'm Lisa Mason Lee, and you can find me everywhere at Lisa Mason Lee.
I am Nakia Monet, and you can find me on all social media at Kiki Boom Boom.
And I'm Elena Jordan. You can find me on Twitter at Elena Jordan and on Instagram at That Elena Jordan Girl. You can find all of us at AfterBuzz TV. And be sure to tune in next week. Bye.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
From producers Maria Menounos, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire BHL crew, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us at info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I'm your BHL announcer, Scipio. Instagram me at Planet Scipio. Thank you for tuning in. The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.